Good morning, everybody. World War II demonstrated the enormous industrial capacity of the United States as it went to war and nationalized the economy. And one of the examples of that was the creation of the Liberty ship, a generic cargo ship. And the first one of thousands was launched on this date, September 27, in 1941. This is a merchant ship sailed by the Merchant Marine, and in the mid-1930s, Congress authorized an expansion of the Merchant Marine. I think because they anticipated war might be coming and we'd need more cargo ships. So the Liberty ships are part of that program, and here's our event. September 27, 1941, the first Liberty ship was launched. This is months before Pearl Harbor. It was called the Patrick Henry, partly because of his speech, "Give me liberty or give me death." So here's a side view of what a Liberty ship looked like. You can see it had lots of room for storage, lots of cranes, not really many guns on it. And about 2,000 of these were built during World War II. Here's a photo of one during the war. They had a couple issues with the steel at first, and some debates about welding versus riveting. But they figured out a lot of those structural issues, and the ships were pretty successful. Some of them were part of Lend-Lease. This was our program of supplying our allies with war material. So you might see a British sailor or a French sailor or even a Russian sailor sailing a U.S.-made Liberty ship. The parts were made off-site and then shipped to shipyards by rail. It was all prefab, and they were put together. So here you see a lineup of Liberty ships being assembled. They early on decided to use an older diesel engine rather than the newer turbines because the older diesel engines were easy to fix, and there were lots of them. So kind of a workhorse engine for a workhorse ship. So in the early days, it took about 6 months to build a Liberty ship. But by the time the war ended, they could make one in about 6 weeks. They actually made one in a week as sort of a publicity stunt, but most of them took 6 to 7 weeks. There were different models of Liberty ships, and one model was a tanker. Here's a picture of that. And there were about 500 of these made. Very important because of the importance of petroleum products in World War II. Another thing they used the Liberty ships for was troop transport, but that was not a good idea. The troops hated the Liberty ships because they weren't really designed for troops. They had very poor ventilation, very poor sanitary facilities, but they used them anyway. There is one example of a Liberty ship sinking a German combat vessel. It was the Stephen Hopkins, and that only happened once during the war. Now, as the war progressed, another version of a cargo ship was built called the Victory ship, pictured here. These were a little bit bigger and a little bit faster than the Liberty ship, especially important with convoys. And here I am on a Victory ship in Tampa. Dorothy and I were here a few years ago. So this is like a Liberty ship, but a little bit bigger, but the same idea, just tons of storage. Well, when the war ended, so much of the ships, the planes, and so on became mothballed or obsolete. Here's a whole bunch of Liberty ships just sitting there in the Hudson River. A lot of them were scrapped or given away. Some were repurposed, like this one became a radar ship. But that's one of the reasons there are very few around today, is most of them were just scrapped. In 1946, a stamp was made to commemorate the Liberty ships. And you'll notice in the upper left corner it says the U.S. Merchant Marine. Now, there are 2 Liberty ships that are afloat today in our country. This one, the John W. Brown, is in Baltimore, and I don't think it gets out too much. But there's another one based in San Francisco, the Jeremiah O'Brien, which was in D-Day, and goes out on little voyages. So if you're in San Fran, you might be able to ride on an original Liberty ship.